Well, the Most High be praised. At this time, we want to begin our class. I want to say shalom to each of you who are in the class today, and also to those who are joining with us by stream. We want to say shalom to you. We welcome you to School of Messiah Bible Institute and to our course, Hebrew language. Those of you that are in class, if you need an outline, the outlines are always on the first seat of the first row, or one of the seats of the first row. You can obtain the outline there. For those of you who are joining with us by live stream, we encourage you to get a pencil, pen, paper, and follow along with note-taking. Today, our lesson is going to be on translating Hebrew words, part 2. It is lesson 7 that we're covering on today. Last week, we began lesson 6 in translating Hebrew words, part 1, and we looked at some of the basic components of translating Hebrew words. And as we discover how to translate Hebrew words, we want to be mindful of some key points that we're going to go over again that will guide us, so that as we look at the scripture in the Hebrew text, we will be able to look at a Hebrew word and know what that word means. So, before we dive into this part of our lesson, let's begin with the word of prayer. Father Yahuah, I do thank you and bless you for your mercies, your kindness, and your graciousness toward us. I do thank you for another opportunity to provide the teaching in learning the Hebrew language, the lettering system, and also the methods of translating Hebrew words. I pray that you would touch each student, that you would give them an open mind, an open heart to receive instruction and apply that instruction, so that in their studies they'll be able to read the Hebrew and translate the Hebrew and understand the meanings of the words, and thereby obtain a more accurate understanding of the text. We do thank you today, and we ask for your guidance. Let everything be done to the glory of your great name, through the mighty name of Yahshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen.
So today we are going to be looking at some words. We're going to translate the words, but also we're going to look at some words that that maybe those who are in class may want to look at and translate. And the reason for this is so that when we are looking at a word and when we are pronouncing a word, we will understand that the meanings of these words are all rooted in the meaning of each letter. So when we deal with translating Hebrew words, we have to be mindful that the letters in the Hebrew language are pictures. They are pictures. We have to always remember that the letters are pictures, and that each picture has a meaning. And the meaning of those pictographs, what I would like to call it, each letter being a pictograph, the meaning is based off of the function of the image. I'll say that again. The meaning is based off of the function of the image. So when we're looking at these Hebrew words, we want to look at each individual letter, starting with the first letter. We want to know what that letter means, and we have a chart that we use that gives us the meaning of each letter. And once we have all of the letters and their meanings noted, then we put it all together and we're able to develop the concept of what the word means. Now, in the Hebrew language, it's important that all of the words and meanings in Hebrew are based off of actions. Hebrew is an action-based language. It is a concrete language. So everything about the language is connected to something that is done. So when we look at words, we don't look at words in Hebrew with an abstract meaning. We don't look at words in the Hebrew from a perspective of we take a word, we go find the definition, and it gives us a definition that might describe an emotion. Even emotions in the Hebrew language is related to a particular action. That's interesting, though. And this is important that we understand that. When you think of, for example, the word that is translated with respect to anger, all right? A word that is translated with respect to anger is related to a person whose nose flares up. Because when a person gets angry, their nose flares up. Mm-hmm. So the action of the nose flaring up is what's used to describe anger. So everything about the Hebrew language, it is rooted and based in a particular action. Okay? So this is important. It's not abstract. We have to look at the function, what the picture means. Like, for example, I'm just going to look at a couple letters. Let's just think about a couple letters here. I want to look at some letters that are related to the body, for example. Now, this right here, this is like a symbol of the Paleo-Hebrew pay. The pay, all right? The pay in Hebrew is the mouth. So if you look at this image right here, what you will see is an image of the mouth. All right? This is the pay in the Paleo-Hebrew. Now, the pay in the block script doesn't look like this. All right? But in the Paleo-Hebrew, the pay means mouth. That's what the image is. It is a mouth. Okay? So, what does the mouth do? What's the function of the mouth? Somebody tell me one of the functions that the mouth has?
Eating.
Eating. Okay, eating. That is a function of the mouth. What's another function of the mouth?
Talking.
Talking. Okay, good. Talking. So when we think of the mouth is something that's related to eating, okay? Talking, speaking. So that's what we can see related to the mouth, all right? Now, Here we have, this is the Ayin in the Paleo Hebrew, the Ayin. And if you think about the name of this letter and what it sounds like, it is an I. We get the word I that we say in English from Ayin, and it is an I. See that? Mm-hmm. This is the Paleo Hebrew letter for the Ayin. Now, this is the block script Hebrew, or the Aramaic script. Modern Hebrew, or what I like to call the Aramaic Hebrew that came into use after Babylonian captivity and continued throughout the first century CE and continuing. This is what the Ayin looks like. Now, this is not the Paleo Hebrew. And it still has the same meaning, that it's an eye. And the meaning associated with the Ayin is to look, to see, all right? Mm-hmm. But in the Paleo Hebrew, you actually have an image that is an eye. And that makes sense. You have a picture of an eye, the function of the eye, you derive the meanings from it. So when we begin to look at Hebrew and we look at these letters, and especially looking at the letters from the Paleo Hebrew, the ancient Paleo Hebrew, is where we actually are able to see the letters and recognize them as being certain images. That's where we're able to get the meaning. When you have the block script is a little difficult because the block script, the Aramaic script, doesn't really give us an accurate picture of what the Paleo Hebrew presents. So I like to write down the Paleo Hebrew letters as well as to put down the block script Aramaic Hebrew, because most of the text that you'll read from, you're going to find it to be in the block script, the Aramaic Hebrew. But it's important to know the Paleo Hebrew to associate it, because there are ancient writings that are in the Paleo Hebrew, especially if you're looking at the Samaritan Pentateuch before it was translated. That's in the Paleo. And so, excuse me, it's important to understand what both lettering systems looks like. And of course, in your notes that you have from previous lessons, you have a chart that shows you the ancient Paleo script, late Paleo script, and also the middle Paleo script, as well as the modern Hebrew script. So those things are needful as we see the development of the letters and their forms. Now, we want to look at some words. Last lesson, we looked at a number of words and we were able to come up with the meanings of them. How many of you all remember Nabi? Mm-hmm. Nabi? Prophet. What was that? Prophet. Prophet, right. Nabi is a prophet. And when we looked at Nabi, I'm going to go ahead and write that again just to refresh us. Nun. Nun, we have the bait. And then we have the Yod. And we also have the Aleph. So here, Paleo, this is what it looks like. This is the Nun. Gives you the N sound, the bait, which is the house, the Yod, which is the hand, and the Aleph, which is the ox head. Nun represents the seed. Remember this? Nun represents the seed. Mm-hmm. The bait is the house. The Yod is the hand, which means work. And the Aleph means strength and power.
It's like the ox head.
It's the ox head, representing strength and power. So, na, be, and in this particular word, the Aleph is silent. But the meaning still holds weight with the letter being there. So, we have the seed in the house that's working powerfully. So when we put that all together, it gives us an idea that the prophet is a person who is the carrier of the powerful active seed. The seed in scripture represents the word of Elohim. So prophet is one who carries the word of power. It's a carrier of the word of power. All right? That would be a Hebraic definition and understanding of a prophet. One who one who contains the word of power, the active word of power. All right? Now, let's look at the word El, sometimes pronounced Al. This is in the Paleo Hebrew script, okay? We have the Aleph, and we have the Lamed. The Lamed is a shepherd's staff. The Aleph is the ox head. Okay? Now, tell me, what's the meaning of the Aleph, the ox head? What's the meaning?
Powers. Power.
All right.
Leader and strength.
All right. So, strong, power, leader. Those are all character traits that we get from the ox head. Now, what about the Lamed? Lamed is a shepherd's staff. Tell me what the meaning of that is.
Teach.
Okay, to teach.
Yoke.
To yoke.
Authority.
Authority.
And bind.
All right. Leader is also a part of that as well.
Okay.
So when we look at the L represents one who is the strong authority or leader of power. The ox head represents the strength, the aspect of strength. The Lamed, which is a shepherd's staff, it indicates authority, leadership, binding, yoking, bringing together, because it has to do with those traits of a shepherd. The shepherd's staff is associated with the traits of a shepherd. So when you put the two together, what you have is a meaning of the strong leader or the strong one, the powerful one. This is the word that is used to refer to the Almighty, Yahuah. The strong one, the mighty one.
The strong one in authority.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The strong and powerful authority.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not limited to the Almighty. It is used with reference to anyone who is in a position of authority. It is used in Scripture with reference to leaders of governments. It's used with reference to kings. In the book of Psalms, there's a particular psalm where the Most High speaks with reference to the governors in the earth. And he makes a statement and he says that you are all Elohim, children of the Most High, or Ben El Elyon. And in that particular psalm, the Most High is saying that he recognizes that human leaders are regarded as being strong ones with authority. That's what the word El means. But he, Yahuah, is regarded as the Most High, the El Elyon, or the El, the one who is the one with the most strength, the most power, the most authority. So when people use this particular word to refer to human beings, it is not something that would be wrong to do. It's not wrong to refer to a human being as El, because El means one who is a strong leader or strong one with authority. Matter of fact, there are places in the Torah, in particular in the book of Shemot and Exodus, where when it refers to Moshe and Aaron in the Hebrew text, what you will find, and it is not translated in most translations, but before the name Moshe, it will say El Moshe or El Aaron. There's a number of places where it says that. Even though it's not translated in English that way, in the Hebrew text, it will say El Moshe, El Aaron, which means the mighty one, Moses, or the mighty one, Aaron, which is a signification of distinction with reference to that person's position of leadership and authority. Now, I really do wish that in most instances, when scriptures are translated into the English vernacular, that they would be translated as they are presented in the Hebrew text. That is not always the case. Now, many of us, we're not aware of that because the average believer does not read Hebrew and does not take the time to read the Hebrew text to notice that there would be a prefix before Moshe's name and Aaron's name. All right? But I just thought I'd make mention of that. But this particular word here, it can be used for human beings that are in positions of authority, as well as being used for the Most High. It's also used with respect to angels. The angels are also called El, mighty ones. Okay? So it just has to do with the context of how this word is used. The context will determine how it is applied. But it's a general term, which means the mighty one or the strong one with authority. Everybody get that? Okay. So this is important to be mindful of. You got some people who have this idea that don't use the word God. We are not gods. And I get the meaning of why people have problems with that, because they don't want to equate themselves to the Almighty. But the scriptures in the Hebrew language have meanings that describe certain aspects that are attributed to the Almighty and certain aspects that are attributed to human beings. Power and authority can be attributed to human beings as well as to the Most High. But we can distinguish between a human being and the Most High, because the scriptures define the Almighty in terms of being El Elyon or Ha El Elyon. All right? The scriptures refer only to Yahuah as being Ha El Elyon, no one else. And that is a distinction given to the Almighty to distinguish him from other Elohim. Okay? Everybody get that? All right. So that's the word El. Now, what I want us to do, I want us to look at the word Yahshua. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the name of Yahshua in a couple of different ways with reference to how it would be pronounced from the scriptures. I want to do that, okay? Because that's important for us to look at. And then we're going to look at the meaning of each letter, all right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then we have Sheen. And we have the Wav. And we have the I. All right. So here is one of the ways in which Yahshua is spelled in the Paleo Hebrew. There are a couple different ways, but I'm gonna start with this one. I want us to identify the meaning of each letter, and then I'm going to write the same name a little differently. All right. So we have the Yod, the Hey, the Sheen, the Wav, and the I. There are many places where we find this rendering in the Dead Sea Scrolls and also in the Masoretic text. Now, this particular rendering is given because it gives us what is needed in the word to pronounce it the way in which it has always been pronounced. All right? So, everybody have that written down? Mm-hmm. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the meaning of each of the letters. So the Yod represents what? It's the hand. It's what else is it? Yo. Work. Right? What else does the yod represent? Come on, somebody tell me. What's that? So, the hand, the yod is the arm with the hand. It represents work. What about the hay? This is the hay. What does the hay represent?
The man with raised hands.
All right, yes, man with raised hands. What does it mean?
Look, reveal, breath.
What else? Look, reveal,
Breath.
breath.
Uh-huh.
Also means worship. What about the sheen?
Sharp, press, eat.
Okay, did you say press,
Eat.
eat? You said sharp, right?
Sharp, yes. Sharp.
Okay,
And two.
and two, as in the number two.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the sheen represents two front teeth. All right, so what about the wav? The wav.
The wav is add,
Uh-huh.
secure,
Secure. And what else?
hook.
Hook. And the ayn. Ayn is the eye. Means to what? To look, right?
Watch,
Watch.
know,
Huh?
and shade.
All right. So I'm going to just leave watch and look there. Okay, so this is one of the spellings of the name Yahshua. It is a name that was first used to refer to Yahshua, the son of Nun, who was Moshe's servant. It also is the name that's used to refer to Messiah, our Messiah from Nazareth. Now, the meaning of this is derived from what these letters mean. We have the hand working connected with the hay. When we see the yod and the hay together, we know what they mean, but we also know that when these two letters are put together, they reveal to us a part of the name of the Most High, Yahuah.
Yahuah.
All right? So we have Yah right here. All right? Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is telling us Yah, all right, the one who works to bring forth revelation. Now, Yah is described by these other three letters. These other three letters provide a certain aspect of Yah. Now, sometimes I'm going to just write this above it. Another way in spelling this name is to have the wav in between the hay and the sheen, where it would be spelled Yahushua.
Yahushua.
Okay? This right here would be the longest and the original rendering of the name. But since ancient Hebrews like to shorten and condense names, they had a tendency to remove the vowels. And the wav is a vowel, but I just wanted to show that. This would be Yahu. All right? So we have Yah, and we have the Sheen. The Sheen represents a pressing, a coming down upon. All right? To chew up. Two front teeth do what? Chew up, chop up, right?
Yeah.
So this particular letter reflects an action that is violent. I want you to be mindful of that. This letter right here, the Sheen, represents an action that is violent because it has to do with pressing down on something, cracking down on something, chewing up something. Every word that is translated with respect to either a person that is an authoritative figure, a person that has a governmental role, or a person that is going to do damage, you will find this letter contained in the name. For example, how many of you are familiar with the judges in the scriptures? The judges.
Yeah.
Those leaders whom the Most High raised up during the period before the kings. The name in Hebrew for judge is Shaphat.
Shabbat.
Shaphat.
Shabbat.
Shaphat, yes.
Okay.
Judges would be Shoftim. The Sheen in a word exhibits the concept of this authority to bring something under its rule, to press. You know how like we all understand the idea of oppression, right? To bring something under the authority. But when the Sheen is used with reference to that. All leadership positions, say high leadership positions in the Messianic community, for example. The word for apostle in Hebrew, it is Shaliah.
Shaliah.
It's Shaliah. Because the Sheen, it has with it a meaning that invokes governmental power. Like in the Greek language, there is a root word called krokos. Krokos. You know how when you say democracy or theocracy, you hear the krokos? That's krokos in Greek. That means authority, like to crack down on something, to smash down on something. In Hebrew, the Sheen has that type of action. So in certain words that are related to authoritative positions, you will see the Sheen in that word. There are also words, for example, that has to do with the word to destroy. You find the Sheen in it because it has to do with pressing down, chopping up, eating up. You know how some people will say, if they're angry with you, I'll chew you up and spit you out. You've heard that expression, right?
Yeah.
That's the Sheen. You understand? That's the Sheen.
Okay.
The activity of the Sheen. Chew you up and spit you out. In other words, I'll destroy you. You get it?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
So this letter is used with many words that have to do with bringing something under authority, also with reference to destroying something. All right? So when we see this word here, this word is going to describe an activity of Yah in this name.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
That makes sense to everybody.
Yeah.
Okay? So the next letter is the Wav. The Wav has a variety of different meanings associated with it because the Wav is the tent peg. all right, or the tent post.
Okay.
The tent post is associated with the house and the house's structure. You can't have a standing tent unless you have tent posts, tent pegs.
Okay.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
Because the tent peg is what secures the house, or the tent rather.
Mm-hmm.
So the curtains that are part of the tent, they're held up because you have these tent pegs or posts in different parts of the tent to hold up the curtains. They support the curtains.
Okay.
So they're instrumental. So you have the meaning of secure or security with reference to the wav. Adding, well, the tent peg or post is also used to connect the other tent walls together. The tent walls are held together by this. So you have add or hook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But what you really start to find with this meaning here of the wav is the idea of security. Security has to do with keeping something secure and safe. All right? Catch that?
Yeah.
So everything that surrounds the wav, it has to do with safety and preserving security, keeping the tent up. The tent is a place of security and protection and salvation for everybody that's inside of it. And the wav is an integral part of keeping the tent up. You don't have the wav, the tent's not going to stand. So you get that idea?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, the ayn is the eye. To look, to watch.
Look to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we begin to look at what this word means, because most of us who have looked at a Strong's exhaustive concordance, when we look at the word Yahshua, whether it's spelled in this fashion, whether it's spelled as Yod, Shin, Wav, Ayn, because that's another way in which this word is spelled, Yod, Shin, Wav, and Ayn. It's also spelled Yod, Hey, Wav, Shin, Yod, Ayn, spelled that way. It's also spelled with Yod, Hey, Wav, Shin, Wav, Ayn, which is the longest name, or it's the original rendering actually in the ancient time, because all names, the way you know what the original name would have been, you want to look and find the longest name. That's the original name.
Okay.
It's when you see the longest spelled name. That's how you know. So with all of that, we get a meaning of Yah or Yahu or Yahuah, who presses down to provide security
Mm-hmm.
on the one he's looking at. See that? So the idea that you get is that Yah is securing by pressing down. He presses down, brings power down for the purpose of securing the one who he's looking at. So you can take this also to mean that Yah, who with the sheen presses down upon the tent post, because you got to press the tent post down into the ground in order to bring security
Mm-hmm.
for the tent.
Stability.
You see that? So we get the concept of Yahuah who saves based upon these ideas. It is Yahuah who brings security, which is salvation, to the one whom he looks at.
Mm-hmm.
You see the meaning in the letters themselves? So each letter has a particular meaning that's associated with the overall definition for the word. All right? That makes sense to everybody. So regardless as to whether we have the hay removed, if we have the hay removed, what we'll have is the yod, because over time, some of these letters were dropped off because after centuries of transmission, everyone knew when they saw the yod, sheen, wav, and ein, they knew that the yod represented Yahuah. They knew that. So instead of writing the yod and the hey and the wav, or the yod and the hey, what you find rendered in just about all of the Hebrew Aramaic of the first century, you will see yod, sheen, wav, ein. Okay? Because they knew that the yod was the letter that represented Yah. Okay? But this portion, sheen, the wav, and the ein, represented the salvation aspect of his work. Okay? So we have these different ways in which the name of our Redeemer to be recognized and used. Now, it's important that we understand the significance of the vowel right here. This is a very, very important vowel right here in this spot. Okay? It's very important. And the reason why I say that is because if we do not keep in mind the reason for that vowel being there, if the vowel was not there, then the whole meaning of the word would change. Okay? All right? So let's look at another way in which the name Yahshua or Yahushua has been spelled, and also how it has been pronounced, which is different from the manner in which it has been originally pronounced by the ancients.
Yahusha.
We're going to look at that. So we have the yod, we have the hey, all right. So here we have the yod, the hey, the wav, the sheen, and the ein. Now, when we look at this rendering, there's some things that we have to understand about the rendering or spelling of this word. We have to understand that when the Masoretic text was produced, this particular spelling for Joshua, son of Nun, is what comes up as the most used spelling. But when the spelling is used, they always had a vowel designation down here that told you that a wav sound was in between the sheen and the ein. Okay? And what that did for the reader, it was to let them know that even though this wav is not here, you're still supposed to pronounce it. All right?
Yahshua.
Okay? If you go look in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance and you look up these letters, and it has these letters, the way it is pronounced is not Yahusha, it is Yahushua, because the vowel designation here is going to give you a vowel designation telling you that you are to put the vowel sound in between here, which is of the wav, as a u.
Yahuah.
That's how it is given in Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. Now, in recent times, in roughly about the past 30 years, amongst a number of Messianic Israelite communities, there are those who have taken a position that the vowel designations down at the bottom should not be used, and they were corrupting the Hebrew language. Now, there's some truth to that. There's some yes and no to that. But the major reason for the vowel designations being down here at the bottom is because in the places where they did not have the vowels, because this word right here is spelled in other places with the wav in between. All right? They just did not put it in here for whatever purpose. All right? But when they pronounce it, they will pronounce it as though the wav is right there. Okay?
But others didn't.
Well, in recent times, which is like the past 30 years, there have been Messianic Israelite communities, because of their rejection of the use of the nikudot. When they look at the letters, they will say, well, we should pronounce it like this, and this is the way it was originally pronounced. It was never pronounced like that. It was never pronounced Yahusha. Never, never, ever. And I'm gonna tell you why. When you see the meaning, you're gonna understand why. But also there's some other evidences as to why it was never pronounced this way. But the first evidence that I need to share with you as to why it was never pronounced this way is because when you look at translation, when you go from Hebrew to Greek translation, when they were doing the translating, all names are translated to preserve the original phonetic of the name. And the only time there would be a difference with the proper name is if there was a issue with going from a Hebrew masculine to a Greek masculine. For example, we are all familiar with Iesus, which is the Greek transliteration of the Hebrew Yahshua. Now, with Iesus, what you have with that translation is this. You have the iota, you have the heta, you have the sigma, you have the omicron, and you have the upsilon and the sigma. So this is the Greek down here, okay? When they translate this word, whether it has the wav in here or not, they do a letter for letter transliteration. Hebrew, we go from right to left. Greek, we go from left to right. So the wav, which is your I sound in Hebrew, is the iota in Greek. This is the equivalent letter for this. Iota. The hey is the equivalent for the eta or heta. All right? This is the transliterated equivalent. The wav is not put here. The wav sound is not put here before the sigma. Even though the wav is here, and in some instances, the wav is not here. Because there's a rendering of this name where it is spelled with the Yod, the Hey, the Sheen, the Wab, and the Ayin. But in every instance of the translation of Yahshua, there's always the O and the U, the O. The Wav, as a vowel, has the O. And so you have the Omicron and the Upsilon that has the same vowel sound as the Wav, as if it was put here. The Sheen, however, which is associated with the Sigma, in Greek, there is no sh sound. The only thing you have is a s sound. All right? So the closest equivalent is the Sigma. Sheen transliterates to the Sigma. All right?
Sheen is Sigma.
Mm-hmm. After the Sigma, you have the U sound, which would come from the Wav being here. And over here, they have the Sigma again, because in the Greek language, you cannot have an A sound in the Greek language. You cannot have Iesua, because then it would be seen as a female.
In a different name.
Well, it would be seen as a female.
Yeah.
In the Greek language. All right? That's basically what it would be. So in order to preserve the masculinity of Yahshua, they put the Sigma here, because this S denotes masculinity. That's why you have Iesu,
Yes.
not Iesua.
Yeah. Okay. I understand.
Does everybody understand that? In every instance of all of the 5 different ways in which Yahshua is spelled, whether it has the vowel dropped or not, it is always spelled in the Greek like this, because the Greek must render it like this in order for it to be pronounced the proper way. Does that make sense to everybody? So for those who will look at this and will say, oh, you're supposed to say Yahusha. Well, you'll never find this pronunciation ever in the Masoretic text, because they never pronounced it this way in Rabbinic Judaism, which is Phariseeism. They never pronounced it this way. Never has been pronounced that way, because it is always seen as having the Wav in between. Now let me tell you why. We're gonna define this word. We're going to define this word that has been called Yahusha. Okay? We're going to define it. All right? So the Wav we know means secure. The Yod, it means it's the hand, work. What is the Hey? Reveal. Somebody tell me some other definitions of the Hey. I'm making you work.
Right here.
Oh, okay. Look, reveal. What's that?
Breath.
Breath.
All right. The Sheen represents, what is it? Press.
Sheen.
Eat.
Sharp. Sharp.
Sharp.
Eat.
Two.
Yep, because of the 2 front teeth. Ein represents what? The eye.
Add.
To look and to watch.
Oh, yeah. Watch.
Right?
Look and to watch. Yeah.
Okay. So now, let's look at this. Let's look at this. Now, if you look at this word and you're not taking into consideration the Wav that's right here. Because in Rabbinic Judaism, when they look at this word, they know that a Wav goes here, even though it might not be there. That's why they put the vowel designation there. Okay. Because the vowel designation there, being there, even though the letter is not there. What it's telling you is that that vowel designation attributes to the meaning of this word. Okay? So let's look at it as though there is no vowel there. And you're going to just say Yahusha. All right? The meaning of this changes completely. I want you to see. Here we have the Yod, the Hey, the Wav. We know that the Yod, Hey, and the Wav together represents the name of the Almighty, Yahuah, right? So we know that represents Yahuah. But what about now we have the Sheen? The Sheen means to press,
Right.
to smash down upon, to eat up, chew you up, and spit you out.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? All right? But then we have the Ayin. We have the Sheen to press, to push down upon, to eat up, and spit out. What is the Sheen going to be pressing down on? What is the Sheen going to be smashing down upon? What is the Sheen going to be chewing up and spitting out? The one who he looks at.
Ooh. Ooh.
So what this is actually saying is that Yahuah, who is destroying the one who he looks at.
Which he does at certain times.
Yeah, he does. But where does the salvation come in at? Because ain't nobody being secured in this.
Nobody.
You don't see the wav in between here. For those who choose to remove the vowel designation, you understand?
Yeah.
There are reasons why the vowel designations were put there, because in the language, as I told you, our ancient Israelite predecessors, they had a tendency to drop vowels and shorten words, but they knew where the vowel was supposed to be in the word, so they would pronounce the vowel in the word. Everybody understand that?
Mm-hmm.
You get that? So if you are taking the wav out, then what you are saying is that Yahuah is the destroyer, not Yahuah who saves. That's what you're saying. You see that?
Yeah.
So every time a person says Yahusha,
Destroy.
it's wrong. They'll tell you. I've seen videos where there are people who will say it's wrong to say Yahshua or Yahushua or Yeshua. They'll say those are the wrong names. They'll say you're supposed to say Yahusha. Well, Yahusha does not mean Yahuah who saves. It means Yahuah who is crushing the one whom he looks at. That's what that means. This would be a word that represents how the Most High towards his enemies. Not for the Savior. When the angel came to Miriam, what did the angel come to Miriam and tell Miriam? You will call his name Yahshua, for he will save his people from their sins. The only way you're going to get salvation in this, you got to put the wav in between here.
And what would it say then?
Yahushua.
Yahushua. Okay. So it would never say Yahusha.
Well, unless you're meaning that he's a destroyer.
To the end.
To the enemy. Yeah, but this is not the way. Without the wav in here, it was never pronounced that way. That's the point that we're making. And many who pronounce the name in that manner because they want to dismiss the reason for the nikudot is because they what they want to do, they want to eliminate everything that is associated with rabbinic Judaism. Now, I'm not a fan of rabbinic Judaism at all, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to information and the transmission of language and the transmission of history and the transmission of the meaning of letters.
Mhm.
You can't throw that away. Everyone understand that?
Yeah. So all these people that are catching on to Yahusha
Mm-hmm.
and thinking that it's right, they're all wrong.
Yeah, they're not. That word does not mean
Yeah.
Yahuah who saves. No, it means Yahuah who destroys what he sees. That's what it means. When you put the sheen and the ayin together and you do not consider the wav in the middle. Okay? You see that?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is important because this is how we do translation. You want to know where Strong's got all of the meanings? Because he knew how to translate. Except what he did was produce definitions that, in my opinion, was a bit limited. Because when you deal with the Hebrew reveals concepts, ideas, and thoughts that have various applications and shades of meaning dependent upon the context that is presented in. Okay? So you can't just say, well, this is what we'll use as a word, equivalent word for this Hebrew root. No, you can have a Hebrew root. It can have a number of different words applied.
So he was just trying to use shortcuts.
Well, yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he was trying to use shortcuts, but he was just being a bit limited. In other words, there's more to the Hebrew word and concept than just what may be presented in Strong's is also concordance. That's all.
Okay.
Same thing happens in English.
Yeah, that's all.
Lead and led.
Yeah. So when we look at the word and we do not consider the fact that even though you might not have a letter in here, it doesn't mean that the letter is forgotten. All right? I'll give you another instance. Now, we dealt with how that when Hebrew words are translated into Greek, that, and in particular like this one, like Yahshua, whether you have it spelled as with the wav in between the sheen and the ayin or not, when it's translated into Greek, it's going to always be translated as Jesus for every one of the 5 different renderings or spellings. Okay?
That sounds close like the Spanish Jesus.
Well, yeah, because Spanish is a Latin language, and Latin is like almost like a relative language to Greek, because
Okay.
the Greeks and the Latins are brothers.
Okay.
Okay, but I want to show you another word, and I'm going to show you this in the block script. Now, here we have the Dalet, the Wav, and the Dalet. All right? Dalet, Wav, and Dalet is my name, Dawid. As a proper name, this is the way it's spelled in most instances when you look at. But I'm going to shorten this up a little. Right below it, all right, so down below it, here's another way in which this name is spelled. This name here renders it as a proper name in the manner in which it's pronounced. Now, only in the writings of Ezra, the scribe, do you find the name Dawid written like this.
Okay.
If you read over in the book of Kings, you'll see Dawid spelled like this. Okay? Here, Dalet, the Wav, the Yod, and the Dalet. Dawid, the E
Yahweh.
is the Yod. This right here is a block script Yod. This is a Hebrew Aramaic Yod or modern Hebrew Yod. All right. So the Dalet, Da, U, the Wab is U, I, D, Da-Uid. All right. But why isn't the Wab here? Why is the Wab here in the other places where you see the word Dawid or King Dawid? Why? Why isn't it here? Because they knew that originally there was a Yod here, but when they see this, they know who his name is. They pronounce the Yod right here, even though it's not there. Okay? That makes sense. It's a cultural thing. It's a thing in the ancient time that they knew. Okay? So for proper names, this is Dawid. This is the more appropriate rendering of it because we see the actual vowel in here that gives us the I. This is just another example of how they drop vowels, how the ancients did that. Okay? I just want to bring that out. This is important because what happens is that when we fail to take into account the different rules and then having an understanding of the historical practice of dropping vowels. I mean, just like in any culture, there are things that every culture does as time goes along. They shorten names, they drop vowels here, but everyone in the culture knows, oh, okay. It's like, you have a person who's named Joseph. We're going to call him Joe. We know your name is Joseph, but we're calling you Joe.
Or wasn't.
Yeah.
And doesn't.
Yeah. You have that. You have a lot of that. This is not anything that's new. But if you are someone who does not have knowledge of this, and there are many who venture to teach the scriptures, but have not really taken the time to just become more scholarly and have a greater knowledge of the background and history surrounding the language, they make some grave errors in trying to say, well, this is the only way you can say this word. Or if you say this word, it's wrong. No, what it is that there's an agenda a lot of times that different religious communities have because, number one, they don't want to be like this other particular religious entity. And with a great many of the Messianic Israelite communities that are coming up, they have a strong disdain for rabbinic Judaism. Like I said, I'm not a fan of rabbinic Judaism at all. But I have the sense enough to know that you do not dismiss history, culture, language that has come down from the past. It's like, for example, it's the same as with how in Protestantism. When Protestantism, what the Protestants did was try to remove everything that eluded Catholicism. So they stopped burning incense, they stopped lighting candles, everything related to Catholicism, they said, we don't want no part of it. Well, we light candles, we burn incense, and guess who else does it or who did it? Our ancient Messianic Israelite predecessors, and also the non-believing Jewish practitioners of Judaism. They do the same thing. It's something that goes all the way back in our traditions. So I'm not going to throw out the baby with the bathwater because Protestants don't want to look like Catholics. Everybody understand that? And this is what happens oftentimes when you have religious traditions that develop and they want to be different from those to whom they have contention with. And our responsibility is to teach and to bring forth information in the most accurate and scholarly way as possible. Now, whatever doctrinal issues or whatever religious issues that we may have, that's fine. But you cannot eliminate history. You cannot eliminate culture. You can't be unscholarly to try to achieve your means and your aims. And so I hope that this class where we have taken the time to provide some ways in which the translating of Hebrew words are done has been helpful. I trust that it helps you to understand that when you are looking at the meaning of each letter and you are putting it together to develop an idea or concept with the Hebrew word, that you're able to do it, and then also be able to recognize where there may be errors if you see errors in other religious traditions or certain prominent teachings that may be developing. Okay? This helps us to stay grounded. It helps us to stay balanced. Because as we looked at the name Yahshua, we looked at how that it means Yahuah, who saves, because that wav is there in between the sheen and the I, right? You know, we know that Yah is saving because the sheen, which is the crusher or the smasher, is smashing down that tent peg, which is going to hold up and secure the whole house where somebody can have security. All right? The one whom he may be looking at, he's not going to crush the one whom he's looking at. He's going to be securing the one whom he's looking at. You take the wav out, here you have the crusher, the sheen, the crusher, the smasher, smashing the one whom he's looking at. I don't want him to smash me. He's looking at me. You understand? Yahuah who crushes the one whom he sees. I mean, but that's what the meaning. That's how we derive these meanings.
The one he ain't looking at is the one that's not saved.
All right. So, at any rate, we trust that this has been helpful to you and that it will give you some tools to know how to look at some of the Hebrew words. And I do encourage you with some of the words that's in your previous homework assignments, take some of those words and practice translating. Practice translating. That's what's going to help you. And then when you go and you read in the Hebrew text, you'll be able to see some words. You'll be like, oh, that's what that means. And you're going to see how that the meaning of some of these words are going to expand as you look at the meanings of each letter and put it all together. All right. Any questions before we close? All right. No questions? Abba Yah, we thank you for your mercies and graciousness. We thank you for this opportunity to provide this teaching today. We trust that it has been effective and that it has brought edification to each one assembled. I pray, Abba Yah, that you would help us in our walk, in our understanding of your ways, and in our studies as we learn more of you through our understanding of how to look at the Hebrew text and be able to better understand it by translating it. We thank you through the mighty name of Yeshua, our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen.
For those of you joining us by live stream, we thank you for your participation. We trust that this class has been helpful and beneficial to you. We do invite you to join us in our midweek time of teaching on this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. and also in our next Shabbat gathering at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Well, the Most High bless you and your families, and thanks again for viewing and being a part of our class. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.